You're good.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fresh Perspective. I know we've taken a break, but me and my co-host Ray are back live and in action. We're in different places, sort of like we were in the pandemic, but it was just easier to do this so we can get an episode recorded. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into what's happening. What's happening, my brother?
What's happening? So Chuck says, so as you can see, man, I got banners now. I went and preloaded some banners for the bottom of this video so people can understand, the segments and who and what is talking. So, man, what's happening, man? We are indeed in separate spaces. I'm still working on what my studio setup will look like and what it will be presented as. But right now, it's kind of a bare wall. You can kind of see the books behind me as I'm an avid reader. But that's to show you guys, hey, listen, my wife and I have transitioned into our own home now. So we have the space to be able to, I have the space, should I say. My wife gave up her dressing room so that I can have an office slash pod studio in the crib so that I could be secluded and separated when we do go to times where we have to be virtual and we can't be together. But I think the biggest blessing of it all is the fact that I had intentions when we first started recording, to give Tuck, my roadcaster. I'm like, look, bro, I want to upgrade, but I'm gonna give you mine, so don't go out and buy it. And the same night, I texted him. I think I texted him and was like, "Yo, bro, in like 2 weeks, I'm gonna come grab the stuff because we moving. So I'm gonna rebuild out my studio." In that same night, yeah, it was the same night, the same exact night. I was blessed with a roadcaster, which is right to my right now. You guys can't see because I'm on my computer. But I say that to say, like, when you want to be a blessing, God makes a way and opens a door so that not only are you able to be a blessing, but He restores the very thing that you bless somebody else with. Don't let that go over your head. Don't be afraid to give away, because ultimately I gave my roadcaster, like literally the one that I bought, I gave away, and God restored it, and someone else gave me a roadcaster basically in the same condition as the one that I gifted. So I'm excited to see what's next for what God has in store for me to give away, because, bruh, the way it happened so seamlessly, and I'm just excited for what God is doing next, man. So that's what's happening with me. How about you?
Listen, I love it. I love it. It's a lesson. It's a reminder, right? We're always told to be generous. The type of men we are, the type of people we have around us are always talking about being generous. And one of the things that I really believe is that when you're generous, just as you open your hand to give, you're opening your hand to receive. Just like you said, and getting a replacement that was comparable to what you were giving away. God just works in mysterious ways. I don't understand all the time, but in this case, the message is clear. Be willing to give because you open yourself up to receive in a way that you couldn't even fathom. So, brother, I appreciate you for being willing to step out because that takes faith, especially because you have things that you want to do when you talk about media and things like that. So, to have the mindset and the heart to say, I want to give this to my brother, even though I don't know where the next thing is coming from, but I know who I belong to. I know whose child I am. So, ultimately I won't be slighted in doing this. So I appreciate you for just following your heart, following what God laid on your heart and being willing to be generous towards me about that. Because honestly, I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to do this. And we had got on the roll recording. We've been off for probably almost a month now.
Mm-hmm.
And we it's funny, we said we wouldn't take that long of a break because we've been on every other week, but things happen. Y'all got your new spot. Uh, People are starting new seasons of life, whether it be school, work, whatever it may be. So there's things happening. I think we're flexible enough. We're like water in many ways, right? So
Right.
because we're like water, we can crash, we can flow, and we know what time to do what. So I love it, brother. So I think this season's been filled with a lot. I think we did need that time. There were some transitions, like I said, so it was good. What's happening for me? I had to go through the first surgery of ever with a child of mine. My daughter had a procedure done. It was like a 10-minute procedure. But as a parent, anytime a kid is having to go in for something like that, even if it is something that's considered very, light, it can be emotional. It was definitely an emotional day because it's like, man, I didn't want to be doing this with my kid. Like I grew up getting tubes in my ear. So I grew up having small procedures like that done pretty much throughout my life. So it's different when you're the child. So,
Right.
it gave me a glimpse at what my mom might have felt having to take me to go get those things done, even though they're considered to be small routine procedures that are really in and out kind of things. It's still, like, man, that's my baby. So she came through good. She was a trooper, first time under anesthesia. So she came out crying like most babies do, they said, when they come off of anesthesia. They wake up kind of, in bewilderment, delirious a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on, why they feel the way they feel. They never felt that. So, she woke up crying, but we were able to get her calmed down enough to take a nap to kind of wear a little bit more of it off. So she did pretty good yesterday. Yeah, it was in and out. I mean, literally, they took her and she was back out, and we were back to her by, I would say, like 15 minutes.
Mm.
So it was
That
really
was real
quick.
quick.
But yeah. So the nurses and the doctors loved her. She's a lot of personality. So she's talking, she's doing all the good stuff that people love what children do. So she was back to herself. I mean, we came home and we were so emotionally drained from preparing for it that we got into bed with her thinking she was gonna take a nap, and she sat up watching Moana, which is her favorite thing right now. And we were knocked out. I said, "Listen, I'm glad she's such a good kid because I don't know if my son would have sat in the room with us if we was
Right.
knocked out. He would have been around the house. We'd have been waking up to like something crazy, water overflowing or something."
Powder all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, he gets into it. He's a adventurous one, so we wouldn't be able to fall asleep like that like we did. She sat right there and watched her movie. She was all in. So, yeah, that was just happening for me. So,
No, that's good. Because when I seen her yesterday, I was like, why does she look like she been like crying or sleep or whatever it looks like? And then you told me, and I'm just like, man, it's so crazy how kids bounce back so quickly.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
one of us. No, what?
So I was saying she had eye surgery, so she had to get stents in her tear ducts because the one tear duct wasn't draining properly. And then when they went in, they just checked the other one and they said, yeah, the other one had like some blockage too, so they just put two stents in both of them. So her eyes were like she had like a slight black eye under her
Hmm.
eye or whatever. So definitely the puff, and she's tearing. They said she'll be teary eyed for a little bit until like everything kind of settles in, and then she'll be good. So yeah, it's different on the other side of that. Like you did as a kid, I didn't really think about it. Like my safety was in my parents, but it's like now I'm the parent, so I
Right.
gotta like make sure that they know that they safe when they with me. So yeah, so that's what's happening with me. Everything went well. I love to watch my son. He gets concerned about his sister, so that's a blessing too because I want to raise them in a way that they really care for each other. So it was good to see that because he was still at daycare when we went and did that, and he wanted the call, he wanted the video, he was like, I just want to make sure she's okay. I'm like, I love it. I'm glad
Right.
that you get that. We are family, and that's all that's not all we have, but that's on this earth from an earthly standpoint. That's who we have. Like we want to build a healthy family who cares about each other. So we're off to a good start.
No, that's awesome, bro. That's super awesome. So I had to remember because usually when I come in your crib, I automatically put my phone on do not disturb.
Yeah.
And since being in this space, I'm like, oh, snap, we're recording a podcast. I need to go and do not disturb before this bad boy start going off. And I just didn't want that to happen. So that's why I was looking over to the side because I was making sure that my phone was on do not disturb, so we did not get interrupted. A phone call come through and the StreamYard shuts down. So I just didn't want that to happen. So listen, man, this episode literally is going to be more like a freestyle kind of deal, as we haven't prepared a topic to talk about. But as y'all know, man, we can talk and we can really talk, and we are conversationalists. So we like to have conversation, um, but we're not going to talk and bore you guys all night long or all day long for that matter. But today, I think it's important. I'm going back to school. So I was at the college in which Tuck works at. And in the midst, I caught him on his lunch break. So he thought it not robbery to spend a few minutes with his brother during his lunch break. And we begin to talk about a topic, and it's still, I think, very, very important, even though the month that the world celebrates, mental health or men's mental health is June. I think it's still very important to talk about mental health from a man's perspective first, because that's what we are. We are men. But to intertwine or intertwine what that looks like for a woman as well. And I think maybe we would need to bring on a woman to have that conversation from their perspective, because we literally can only talk about what that feels like, or how we go through what mental health looks like for ourselves, because we men. So I think that episode we could do, in the weeks to come. But I think it's really important to just have, maybe just another dialogue, 20, 30 minutes of the mental health piece, continuing on from the conversation that we had. I think that was episode 2 or 3. I was going back and watching. I think it was episode 2 or 3 where we talked about men's mental health. But why? So this is the question I think that can start the conversation, right? Why is it that we as men, and again, it's any race, any culture, any nationality, or even young men for that matter, who have not yet eclipsed the age of 18, but why are we so stuck in the position that we need to be strong, and we're not able to have the conversation? And where this question comes from is there's a group of men now who are posting on social media. Well, where does the one who's supposed to be strong go when they're not able to be strong anymore? And there are no outlets that are curated for a man to go and have that conversation.
Right. So for me, immediately I go to the thought that popped in my head when you said, "Why are we not willing, or why are we not um, having spaces where we can actually be able to express ourselves, be able to take off the cape?" I just finished Battle Cry by Jason Wilson. I listened to it. I'm an avid listener. My brother Ray says he's an avid reader, and I commend him and even admire him. I find it to be something that's very admirable. But for me, listening is far better, especially when you can get a book where the author who wrote the words, who has the passion for the words that they wrote, is actually reading to you. And I'm gonna go back and listen to it again. It's probably going to be something that's in my rotation of listening as I keep going and going and going. It's just a very, very good listen. I could tell it's something that I would pull out. But in it, there were a lot of gems. And one of the things that really stick out here is taking off the cape, right?
Mm.
I think there's comfort in the cape because it's easier to shut off your emotions than to deal with them. I think we started to talk about this um, during my lunch break. So it's easier to wear the cape and be a superhero, be Superman. But we got to remember, I remember in high school, I was obsessed with Superman. Um, I was so obsessed with Superman. I mean, it just was a thing for me, to the point where I called myself BCK, Black Clark Kent. Um, that's the abbreviated version of it, but I call myself the Black Clark Kent, and I just came across this video where the guy says, Superman had to act to be Clark Kent, and Superman's a fictional character. It's the first kind of premise of that conversation, but the second part is you got to remember Superman's from out of this world. He's superhuman. He had to pretend to be Clark Kent, but he
Mm,
was never not Superman as
mm,
far as his abilities goes. His point is men need to stop thinking they're Clark Kent because you're just a human. Be a human being is what the whole idea was. You're not a superhuman. You cannot turn off your emotions. You cannot act like things don't bother you, that you're not offended. And so I think there's comfort there because nobody has taught us, in most cases, how to engage our emotions. And that's my whole thing, just to kind of kick it off to answer the question is I believe there's more comfort in the old traditional way of viewing a man and being in that space because nobody has taught us to be in the other space, how you
mm.
healthily engage your emotions in a way that is not only productive and um, healthy for yourself but for your family, whether you're married or not. It could be your family that you come from. If you're not married, it could be your family that you're creating if you're married. um, or whether it be your community, whether it be the school you go to, the job you work at, we have to begin to take the cape off because it's not even realistic to carry that, to wear that, because we don't have superhuman abilities. We're not impenetrable. Like we can be harmed not only physically but mentally and emotionally. So that's my whole thing, and that's what I think about as far as answering that question. That's what I think.
Okay. So so I, so I have a similar background. So well, not background, but I too, had the S on my chest per se. I didn't think I was Clark Kent. I really thought I was Superman, and I got so bad, bro. Like I was literally running around putting out fires in people's lives.
Mhm.
Like literally, an emergency come up for somebody. I'm there to. Um, Dang, I should have put it on super. Do not do that. But anyway, I'm sorry because somebody got my favorites got through. So anyway,
Right, right,
uh,
right, right. You around it so much. Them favorites.
yeah, the favorites popped up.
Yeah.
But run into a space of emergency for everybody else, man. It got to a space where I was beginning. It was like 2017, like 2017, 2018. I got to a space where I felt myself draining, like literally draining. And my stepmom said, "Son, when will you recharge? Who's going to help you recharge?" And I remember telling her, I said, "Mom, I'm Superman. I ain't got to recharge. There's no need to recharge because I can keep doing this for the rest of my life." Not really understanding that when you get to your most weakened space, that's when your immune system begins to attack you,
Right,
right? And
right.
the stress, like I wasn't dealing with physical stress on my body, but I was dealing with the stress of other people, right? That's how the alopecia came about. The alopecia came about because I was literally stressed out over other people's problems. I was literally going after solving the problems for other people when my life literally at the moment where I got so drained that my immune system began to be attacked. That's when I looked and I realized I'm like, yo, I need to be recharged. And I made a vow to myself that I will never get to a space of depletion again where I'm not able to, one, see the signs, because literally there were signs before my hair began to fall out, bro. Like
Mhm.
there was literally signs, but um I didn't perceive the signs because I was so gung ho about making sure everybody else was okay and not really understanding that, Ray, your body is breaking down. While you may think that you are Superman, and while those around you who you go and tack the not tack, who you go and go to their rescue, they may think you're Superman, but like you said, you're just a mere mortal. You are just a human being, and just like every other human being, you need a space of relax, excuse me, refresh, and a relaunch.
Mhm.
So that answers the question on my end.
I mean, the big thing that I could really think of is in response to what you were saying, I think about like we both God fearing men, Christ followers,
Right.
and I think about the awesome things that God has done in my life and the awesome revelations that I've had because of my relationship with God and my commitment to following Christ. And honestly, I think about one thing. So my dad was very much like that. He ran off. You called, he ran. Whether it was his brothers, whether it was some people he met through work, working at
Mm-hmm.
the post office, and because he was able to do a lot of things, almost like a general contractor unofficially. He made a lot of connections, and help people out, do work for them. Of course, he would charge them a lot less than if they went to an actual general contractor, but he was big on that. And part of it was his heart. I do believe it was his heart in the sense of to help people, to serve people. Part of it was also a service to himself because he
Mm.
struggled with significance
Mm.
and whether he was significant, whether he mattered. And most people in his life have attached their relationship to him to what he can do for him. Now, the only person that I could say had an unconditional relationship with him outside of our home, um, that I witnessed as unconditional in relationship to him, in close relationship to him, was my uncle Dwayne. I don't know if you know my uncle. You know my uncle Dwayne, right?
Yeah, I know. I know him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's his best friend, his brother, or is, and that's my uncle. Like whenever we needed something, and my dad didn't have it at the moment, we could ask Uncle Dwayne. My parents weren't coming home after school right away. We went down to Uncle Dwayne and Aunt Marla's house. So there was no condition, and it was vice versa. If my dad had it and my uncle didn't have it, vice versa. They never. It was never a question asked. And my experience in my in me in what I was able to witness in that was like that's the only person who I could see who had, and I mean when I'm saying that I'm talking about like adults who had a connection to my dad outside of my mom, where it wasn't about what he can do for them. And the problem with our society, men and women, kids, boy and girl, whatever, is that men are love based. It's a condition. What
Mm.
can you provide? Are you an ultimate protector? Okay, cool. You get a little respect. We love you. We love that you're around. Are you an amazing provider? Now we talking, okay, you the ultimate man. And that's what we're trained to believe. That's what we're conditioned, indoctrinated in this society, is that that's what men are. I mean, to the point where you have people saying that that is what a man is. People who are believers who will talk like that. That's what men are supposed to do. We need to let men get back to being men. And I'm like, but we're missing a whole point here. God
Mm-hmm.
did not create us to pay bills. He did not create us to pay bills, and I think we miss it. We miss it. Everybody thinks a man's sole purpose is to pay bills, and this is where you get a thing called toxic masculinity. It's all based in your prowess, how strong you are, how dominant you are, the respect you command, and it's all about what you can earn to bring to the table. And the problem with that is it doesn't only hurt our society to limit us as men to those things, it hurts us because we're cut off from a whole different part of, a family life, community
Mm-hmm.
life. We're almost like sheepdogs. We're almost like sheepdogs. Sheepdogs don't get to be in community with sheep. They are to protect the sheep. They are to be around and make sure the sheep stay where they're supposed to be. And the tough part about that is we have feelings. We hurt. We want companionship. It doesn't have to be with a significant other. It doesn't have to be romantic. We want companionship. We want to be able to, and so we're cut off from our community. In some ways, we're even cut off from our family because we protect and provide. So you can't get emotional. You can't get involved in the nurturing aspect of your children, because you got to be a man, you got to be a man, you got to stay over here and do this and do that, and then for children you just add discipline. So we protect, provide, and discipline.
Right.
I think I put it in that episode: protect, provide, and punish. And I wasn't just talking about children with punishment. I was talking about even people who step over the line and put your family at risk and things of that nature too. But it limits us to this kind of periphery relationship with our community and our families and even in our relationships, because as a man, like I remember Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent said, you know, you don't show no love, love will get you killed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mindset. Like if you love too much, you'll end up getting killed. You got to have you kind of got to distance yourself from these emotions, because you got to be on. That's the only way you can stay on your P's and Q's as a man.
No, so it's not a. So if you think about it, right, love will get you killed, right? So he meant it in a physical sense,
Mm-hmm.
but if you really think about it, it could be emotional as well.
Right, right, right.
Because if you show too much love or too much emotions,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the relationship that you're in, whether it be again your spouse, a business relationship, a work relationship, just your homies, you know what I'm saying? Depending on what that looks like, depending on the person who you are showing too much love to, they can have a toxic trait,
Yeah.
which they will pry on your ability to love them unconditionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately wounding you in a space of emotion, right?
Yeah.
And where we get to, we talked about in a few episodes ago, we talked about the ticking time bomb and how we as men have heard "shut up, man up, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry for," like all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And in my adult life, I have been scarred, bro. I've literally have shown so much love, um, and that love not be reciprocated. As a matter of fact, that love be used against me in spaces, right? That caused me not to want to love anymore. So when he said love will get you killed, he is saying both in the physical, well, he's saying in the physical, but I'm also saying in the emotional sense, love could actually put you in a place where you become numb to actually loving people, right? You
Right.
become in a space where it's like, yo, I'm not showing no love because I don't want to get hurt again. So therefore, you're dead in a sense of loving someone.
Yeah.
You just got killed. But go ahead.
No, no, I'm following along. The only thing I'll add is that like there's this thing that my pastor uses illustration in one of his sermons. So it was with him. It's about him and his wife, and so he says they were in a season where they were kind of back and forth at each other, just at odds and arguing and things like that, right? So he says, most of us think like something happens, and we both married, so something happened with wifey. Hey, sorry, but I'm very
Oh,
going.
I thought she was behind me.
No, 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 no. No, I'm saying hey to the wives. Hey, wives, we
Right.
love y'all. Like, but something happened, we in the mix or whatever, and the first thing you think is like, you're killing me. Like you're killing me right now. Like, why can't we just get on the same page, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
he said, my pastor says this out loud in the midst of their just going back and forth. And his wife, Pastor Chris, says to him, well, Paul needs to die.
Mm.
I said, whoa. He was
Mm.
like, he said that was an ouch moment. And so what that meant was all of the things that you built up as to who you are to now bring it back to me. All the things that I built up as this is Levi. This is how I act. This is how I respond to things. This is what I'll give. This is what I won't give. All of those things, not all of those things are given to me by God. Some of those things are given to me by experience. Some of those things are given to me by my hurts and wounds. Some
Mm-hmm.
of those things are given to me by some of the poor leadership in front of me that I picked up. Some of, and not saying that the person or the people who have led me are just totally bad all around, but some of the bad habits that they have that I didn't have no business, that God had no intention on me picking up, some of the things that how I operate as a man come from those spaces. And so some of what my wife, the attitude I might feel like I'm getting, the neglect I may feel at times, we all go through seasons, and sometimes you're neglected and sometimes you're the neglector. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but all of those things are like a washing machine, the old school top load washing machine with the agitator.
Mm.
You can't get dirt off of you unless you're agitated. You can't get dirt off the clothes that you're washing unless they're being agitated. Now we got front load washers, and they turn, but the friction of the clothes trampling over each other, spinning, getting the water added, the soap added, and all that friction that's happening in that process is what's getting the clothes clean. No different than a relationship, no different than a marriage. And when she said it's like a pruning, like Paul needs to die, Levi needs to die sometimes, because some of my false thinking about what a man is needs to be stripped away. And some of that's going to come in conflict. Some of that's going to come in conflict with my wife. And so in the moment, my focus is on her. But God is saying, after you come out of it, he's saying to you, no, 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 I had you going to that season because you need to be agitated. Because without
Mm.
the agitation, then we couldn't get that dirt off of you. Some of that residual dirt that was left on you from a poor example of how men should engage their emotions, a poor example of how men should participate in parenthood, right? As much as I intend to be a nurturer, just like my wife is a nurturer, I also know that it's a struggle because my father wasn't a nurturer. He wasn't a nurturer. But no man nurtured him. No man nurtured him. So I say that to say, allow the agitation. I think when we're at odds with women, I think I see a lot of conversation. Some people we know, some people we don't. I see a lot of bickering in the black community, and maybe not just the black, but any person of color. I see a lot. It could be Latinos, it could be any person of color. There's just this argument that's happening between men and women, and it's centered around kind of the modern woman versus the traditional man. And so guys like Kevin Samuel, Andrew Tate, there's this conversation that they kind of were feeding, like, and Kevin Samuel's no longer with us, but they were feeding and fueling the fire of these kind of intense conversations that were happening between men and women. And the reality is we need to get back to a collaborative relationship, whether you're in a relationship romantically with a woman or if it's just a community thing. We need to become more collaborative and not necessarily at odds. It doesn't alleviate conflict, but when we get into a conflict, we're not in it to see who's right or wrong. We're in it to come out better than we went into it. So whatever that is, we'll have our conflict, might be offended, I might be offended, but we're ultimately looking to bring that back together. We're ultimately looking to strip away the things that do not work. Because even when we think about manhood, bro, women perpetuate the idea of this narrow idea of what men are too. But it's because that's what they were told. And
Right.
and then they go back and say, well, I don't feel safe around men who don't engage their emotions. But it's like, but you perpetuate it. I'll tell you one thing, and I'll let you jump back in, is one of the key things in my childhood growing up, and this is probably more so in my teenage years, preteen and teenage years, up through high school and all that. My mom would say to me sometimes, and she probably doesn't even remember this. She would say to me, don't nobody like a whiny man.
Mm.
Now, how did I perceive it? So you make a blanket statement like that, I receive it like nobody wants to hear me talk about my feelings or how I feel about something.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that was her intention. I think what she really meant was the whiny, pouty stuff, which I wasn't a big into that. But if I'm voicing my complaint or concern and you feel like, well, you're not looking to do something about it, well, no therapist is going to tell you that you need to be able to take action steps immediately as soon as you feel some type of just like offness. Like no therapist is going to say, well, don't talk about it unless you're just going to solve it right away. No, we have
Right.
to talk about it first. So because I bring that up to say, not to say mom did a bad job or something like that, but to say, but that's what, as a woman, she was told about men is. And my dad wasn't a complainer. He was I'm sure he was worried, but he didn't complain. But who did he share his? He had nobody to, because that's old school. You don't talk to nobody about nothing, and you definitely don't take it to a man like you complaining, because a man,
Mm-hmm.
I got my own problems too. And
No,
guess
that's a
what I
fact.
do? Lace up my boots and go out and do what I got to do. Just come back home, and that's it. So we have to begin to strip away this very narrow, this very toxic. So the only way toxic masculinity can, one, be, could have been created, and two, been perpetuated, is the fact that we all bought in to the idea of that's what a man is supposed to be. Now we need to buy into a more modern version of what a man is supposed to be. Yes, he can be a protector. Yes, he can be a provider. In this economy, both people actually, probably, it's probably wise for both people to be a provider in this economy. But yes, he can be a protector. And then don't try to use Bible to say, well, this is what men are supposed to be here. I think too, there's a thing, and I would love to kind of do more research, and I want you to jump back in. I would love to do more kind of preparation to go into this type of topic. At one point, we will talk about the difference between leadership and headship.
Mm.
There's a
Yeah,
difference.
there's a difference. There's a big
There's a
difference.
difference. Women can definitely be leaders, and in many cases in our community, women have had to be heads too, and they've done pretty decent jobs. We have to realize, like, with the amount of single moms that we have in our community, and the amount of goodness that has still come out of our community. I know we have statistics that show that single mom homes produce such negativity and criminality and all that kind of stuff. But nobody wants to talk about all the greatness that's come out of single mom homes. Nobody wants to talk about those things. You know what I mean? Exactly. So my thing is, let's be balanced when we talk about it. Yes, is it more ideal? Yes, did God intend for us to have mother, father, children, and things like that, and then also community, because then you have men who do the lone wolf thing, and they be leading their women astray. I just saw this video, and I'll say it after. I'm gonna let you jump back in, but I'll
You
say
can
it
go.
because I saw it going. I
like
saw it going.
like I told you before at the crib when I was sitting across and I was just looking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I just be so locked in.
You gotta
Um,
jump in, bro. Jump in, because I'll go. I'll
no,
go.
I know that. So I know I look crazy on camera because I'm on my laptop and I'm so used to the camera that be in the studio, like in your studio,
Mhm.
that it is very difficult to figure out where I should be looking. It's kind of hard. I'm over here struggling right now
Yeah.
with the camera with the camera situation. But next time I'm gonna have my other phone over here or my regular phone over here so that I can look, at the, anyway.
So you can look up into the camera.
Yeah, so I can do something because I'm really confused right now. Like I'm like I should be looking at myself or
Yeah.
should I be looking at the cat? Like either way, it's cool. I think I'm just gonna look at the camera and then I kind of just figure out what that looks like later. But I would so okay. So you mentioned you said a few things, but the one thing that stuck out because I just raised my hand to it is kind of like what is the product of when you are in a single family household. You know what I'm saying? Like when mom has to be the head, mom has to be the leader. There are good things, there are great things that come from those settings. But what I believe is that if men so sometimes because I'm trying to be politically correct when I say it and not offend anybody because sometimes when there are men in the household and there are women in the house, so like you come from a two-parent background,
Hmm.
but sometimes when you're in those spaces, the man ain't being a man, and the woman has no choice but to step up
Yeah.
and be headship and leadership. And sometimes, and not even sometimes, most times, because I've experienced it personally in my life where that was the case.
Hmm.
And now the woman who is in a relationship with a man who can lead and who can be in headship they oftentimes try to be the head
Mm-hmm.
when that man is fully capable of being the head,
Right.
and they hinder him from leading the way that he ought to lead because you're trying to wear the the figure of speech is you're trying to wear the pants in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship when you should be able to sit back and allow the man to do what men do, and that's lead, and that's also to be in a space of headship. But oftentimes when they come from that space where, yeah, my dad was there, however, my mom was in charge, right? When they come from that space, it is very, very hard to recondition their minds and recondition their belief patterns to see a man step into that role and be who he says that he knows that he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the reconditioning of their minds is the hardest part, and I can literally I'm speaking from personal experience because my mother-in-law was just that. She was the head and she was the leader. So when we got into the marriage relationship, my wife was taking on what she saw as a child. My mom was in charge of our household. My mom was the leader of this household, right? So she tried to incorporate that. And to be real, it just ain't gonna fly. You know what I'm saying? Like even in my immaturity, I was still poised to lead us in the right direction, right? I was still poised to be the head of what this looks like because I understood who the father was. And
Right.
that's really what it comes down to. I'm not telling women to, you need to submit and you need to allow this man to be the head of your house. You need to allow him to be in a leadership role because if he ain't doing what it is that he's supposed to be doing, we can't expect a woman to follow behind somebody who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, bro.
Right.
Like literally, I tell people all the time, like when things are in disarray in my house, I look at myself first, like God, what am I not doing correctly
Yeah.
that my house is in disarray? I don't look at my wife. My wife's not the head of this house. Why would I be looking at her to figure out what's going like what is chaotic in my house? Why am I looking at her for what that looks like? Because he charged me, and I'm only speaking from again just from my experiences, because he charged me to be the head, he charged me to be the leader. I have to look introspectively and say, yo, what is it that you're doing wrong? Or not even wrong, but what is it that you're lacking in that could be better? And then I begin to see things calm down in my house. When
Yeah.
I look through me, and I'm not saying it from a space of Superman, I'm saying it from a space of vulnerability. I'm
Mm.
able to get vulnerable enough to ask the Father, what is it in me that's not like you, that's causing this chaos in my house right now?
Right. Right.
So we have to be able to, as men, we have to be able to seek inside from a
Mhm.
space of not depression, not a space of I'm beating myself up, but a space of self-evaluation that allows us to be able to say, yo, all right, this is what I gotta do to get myself back in a position where I'm able to function correctly,
Yeah.
and function out of a space of depression, because functional depression is real. But
Right.
how? But we have to be able to say, "Yo, yeah, I decompartmentalize that. I want to talk about it with somebody. I'm going to talk about it with somebody, but I still need to make sure that I'm standing 10 toes in what I said that I'm going to do, and that's lead my family, and that's be the head of what this house looks like."
I love it. I love it. I love it. Mm. So let's keep going and talking about that.
Okay.
So I just kind of looked up a definition, and it's kind of a compare and contrast kind of thing. In the first paragraph, I see, like I said, we could do another episode where we kind of really talk. I can share this with you, and we can really go into it a little more. But it says leadership is about getting people to work together for a common goal. Leadership skills include communication, coaching, delegation, and motivation. Headship is about guiding people toward a goal, which means leading by example. It goes right along with what you were just saying. Headship skills include delegation, persuasion, and self leadership. And so there are differences in leadership and headship. Headship can include leadership, and leadership can include headship, but they're not. The two are also two different things at the same time. So there may be a season where I know for me, where Diana has the high hand. And I would be a fool to say, well, I'm the man. So I had a conversation with one of my brothers. He's like, well, bro, you still make the final decision, right? And I'm like, we don't put ourselves in a position where there needs to be an executive decision. But if there
Mm,
ever had to be an executive decision, there's a level of trust that Diana has in me to make it. And there's a level of responsibility that I have in the situation where I'm not making a decision just because I feel like it. I'm
mm,
considering all things. I'm considering what she has. I'm considering what the outcomes, the possible outcomes could be as many as I can think of before I make that type of decision. But I told him, I said, the way we live together, the way we, as our channel is called 2B1, as our podcast is
mm-hmm,
called 2B1, the way we are continuously becoming one is always seeking each other, but mostly seeking God for our direction. And honestly, the seasons where we're the most in sync, we're both in sync with God individually. And then so when we come to each other about something we need to make a decision about, what happens is we both come to the same conclusion most of the time because we both been consulting and taking it to God, petitioning God for what direction we should go in. So one says something and the other's like, I can agree. Like I agree. That's what that's what's been on my spirit. That's what God laid on my heart. All right, good. All right, so we're gonna be all right. Like we both in tune. As long as me and Diana are in tune, I'm good. As far as being a headship, it's not about the power and authority. I think there's there is a piece of that, but it's about one being intimately connected to every person in your family to a point where one you can almost sense what they would do, what they would like to do, where they
mm,
would like to go. Two, you're so intimately attached to the members of your family, and as my kids get growing here, I continuously I'm watching them. I'm trying to see how their temperaments are, seeing some areas where I'm going to have to spend some time with them and continue to be very consistent with the discipline in those areas and constantly checking in. But headship is more about to me because it said delegation was one of the skills. To delegate, you must know who is good at what.
strengths and weaknesses.
You have to. You have to. I think people think it's an authority thing. It's a I could tell you what to do thing. It has more to do with understanding the members of your family, understanding the members of your community. If you are a minister, pastor, understanding who is good at what, who is gifted, who is called, and if they're in tune with God, it's not much of a struggle because they should be getting the same signal
Right.
that was laid on your spirit, even if they don't want to do it, even if they like Jonah and they like, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to go in a different direction. I'm trying, and you looking at the behavior, they running away, they going over here. I told them
Mm-hmm.
they need to be in ministry and they at the bar. I told them they doing this and they over, and you looking at that, you getting caught up in that. Well, maybe they not called. God, like, no, they might be more called because they over there. So you can't get caught up in those things as a head. You have to know who is in your family, what they're called to do, and what their gifting is or giftings are,
Right.
because that is going to come in handy when it's time to move towards a goal. And then on top of that, the thing I love about that whole thing when it talked about the difference between headship and leadership, it talked about the headship being more bearing, there's more bearing on the example that you set. And it goes right to what you were just saying. If something's off in my house as the head of my house, I look at myself first. I must be off. Even if I feel like I'm not off, there's
Right.
something about me that's off. Maybe I'm not being super consistent in certain areas. And that's why my kids are acting this way. That's why my wife giving me the side eye. That's why My wife doesn't seem very maybe interested in things of the Lord and things. I said one thing, but I haven't kept up and been consistent. I'm gonna go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and be transparent. I said to my wife on Wednesdays each week, we would come together for not a long time, but just to give each other the gift of our needs and where we need prayer at, and to spend about 30 minutes in prayer for each other, back and forth. And part of that time would be us giving the gift of our need, and then to close out the time, we would pray about those things, and we would come together each week. I haven't been consistent with that. We did it two or maybe two times, and I haven't been consistent with it. So when I say to my wife, I really dropped the ball. I need to get back consistent with such and such. I really apologize. And she, and I'm being transparent. The initial response was, I'm tired of just hearing you say that.
Mm.
And that's real. But as the head, I gotta eat that. As the head, now she apologized to me, and I said, I appreciate you apologizing to me. But at the same time, you're right.
Right.
I just
Absolutely.
gotta be consistent, not talk about it, just be consistent. So if I mess up, it's not that I can't mess up or if I can't miss a Wednesday or something like that. But when I do, just get back on the horse. All right, cool. I missed the Wednesday. Make sure we do it. Make sure I do it. Right? That says a lot more than words of, "Hey, I need to get back on track. I know I messed up. I told you we was gonna do this." And da, 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 da. So I'm gonna give you a real life example, even with myself. So headship is leading by example and doing what you say you are called to do, and what you said you're going to do. And so I loved it because it's like that last part was self leadership.
Mm-hmm.
We get so fixated as men sometimes, and some people who believe, a lot of people call on the Bible to justify men having kind of like impunity with rule in their family, and they don't even believe. We talked about that. We talked about that too.
At lunchtime. At
People
lunchtime.
who will question you or tell you, "Ain't you a believer?" Like, but you're not, so you can't hold me accountable. You can't. You actually are mocking my faith. You're mocking my God
Mm-hmm.
by acting like that. And so, yeah, I mean, what I will say is, I'll take that back. They can hold you accountable in the sense of God can give somebody who doesn't believe a word for you, and it can come from anywhere. So I'll take that back. But when it's disingenuous, that's how you feel. You're like, you're not even being genuine about this. You trying to throw it in my face like, oh, if you believe, how you acting like that? And it's like, you don't believe. So why are you
Right.
even calling on whatever to try to challenge me on something when it's not something you would follow for yourself? Um, that's neither here nor there. But the point of that is the headship part of it is leading by example. A lot of headship is that part of it. It's not the directives and the command and the you come in the house and you lay down the hammer and you like you got to do this and you got to do this and you can't do this and you can't do that. It's how you comport yourself. That's why in Timothy, in First Timothy, I believe, when it talks about if a man wants to be in the ministry, and it talks about, I think I'm in the right one. Is it First or Second Timothy where it talks about man in the ministry? I'm pretty sure. I know it's the Timothy's. I think it might be second.
No, no worries. I'm gonna open them up for you. Go ahead, finish talking. I got you.
So it talks about a deacon. It talks about anybody that wants to serve and how they have to manage their home, and a lot of it comes to their. It talks about the actual character of the person who wants to be in those roles, how they need to comport themselves, and how that is supposed to be the sign of whether or not they're supposed to be in leadership roles. So let them be upstanding. If you can't manage your household, and part of managing your household is how you comport yourself. Because guess what? When we talk about children, it's what you do, not what you say. When you talk about your wife, it's what you do, not what you say. Like the example I gave about me and Diana recently. It's about what you do. It's not what you say. So you can say all you want, but if your life ain't lining up, if you telling your kids don't lie, don't cheat, don't do this, you can't keep your eyes off of other women. You can't, you know, stop stealing money, or you're not honest about money. Whatever it is, you're nothing you're saying to your children or to even to your wife means anything.
Right.
Therefore, there's going to be chaos in your home. There's going to be a lot of turmoil. There's going to be a lot of rebelliousness because you're living a rebellious life.
And you're dwelling there.
Yeah.
Boy,
So it
I'm, I'm,
talks.
pu- I'm pulling it up. Go ahead, finish talking. I'm pulling
Yeah.
it up though.
So I just say that to say when we talk about headship, it's not what y'all think it is. When we talk about submission, it's not what y'all think it is. A woman should submit to a man, not blindly. I'll tell
Uh,
you, in my house, my mom was the spiritual leader, the spiritual head of my house. That's just the reality. My dad was a practical, carnal man. That's just he wasn't. That's just he believed in God, but he didn't follow Christ in the sense of in his entirety. He had components of himself like service. He had components of himself that followed some of the things of what Christ would have been doing at his time. But when we talk about the fullness of it, fully given, and some people say, well, that's the way he followed Christ. And it's like, I believe he was saved, but I believe that he had a lot of carnality too. And my mom did a lot of the spiritual. Like if it had not been for my mother, I probably wouldn't have been a man of God
right.
because she kept us in the word. She kept us lifted in prayer. She kept us around godly folk. So there goes an example right there where you would say, well, men can't. Da, 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 da. A lot of who I am, especially being a man of God, a lot of my character stuff, it came from my mom and my dad. It was the discipline, the hard work. It was just the practical, just being a man's man, being able to defend yourself, protect your loved ones. A lot of that stuff came from him. But when it came to the things of the spirit, that came from my mom. Well, in reality, I'm an example of that from a spiritual standpoint. I'm a lot like Timothy, from a spiritual standpoint. When Timothy is spoken about in the Bible, when Paul's talking about Timothy, he's talking about his mother and his grandmother stoking the flame of faith. You know what I mean? So that, and then if the mention of his dad, it almost makes it seem like his dad was a Greek man, wasn't a Jewish man. Wasn't a believer in this case, more so a believer because Paul was leading in that direction of the gospel and everything, but he was a Greek man, so he was far detached from anything when you talk about just following Christ and Judaism and the gospel or anything like that. He was far detached from that, so he couldn't have given them that. So in many ways, it's funny, my pastor from 16 probably through 21 had directed me to First Timothy, Second Timothy, and Titus, and I just was. It took me like 3 or 4 times reading through those 3 books to really understand like why my pastor directed me there. And then I'm like, man, it's because it's parallel. Like I'm looking and I'm like, my mom is the one who introduced me to the faith. My mom is the one who kept me in the faith until I was a teenager and I had to make my own decision. My mom is the one who continues to pray for me. So in many ways, she's the reason. She was the introduction to the faith.
Right.
So back to the headship part of it, it's like it happens and maybe it's not ideal, but the thing is, and this is what I want to say, this is where I'm gonna get real direct with it. A lot of you niggas saying that men need to be the head, y'all not even healthy. Y'all not even healthy. That's the thing. Whether it be physical health, y'all smoking cigars, we talked about that. Y'all, whatever, y'all drinking, y'all know the end of a bottle too much throughout a week, throughout a month, throughout a year. Y'all mind ain't in the right place. Half of y'all can't even hold down a job. And y'all want a woman to just listen to you because you got something dangling between your legs. That's
Ooh,
that's the
wait.
reality of it.
Oh,
That's the reality of it. And I believe every man should be, but leaders are built. They're not born. I think people are born with leadership qualities, but that's different than being a leader. And so you need to really get on your game. Stop worrying about what the modern woman is doing. Because the truth is, most of y'all aren't ready. Y'all not healthy. heck, half the time I don't feel ready or fully healthy enough to do it. So if you want to be real with it, that's the reason why women don't trust us, is because we tell them, well, I got you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And time after time, we're inconsistent, but we're not being honest. If we were being honest and we were struggling, like I said, with my inconsistency, with the prayer time with my wife, at least be honest. Yeah, I've dropped the ball. I'm being inconsistent about that. I need to get back on my game. All right, cool. But that's more so, like my wife said, honestly, you keep saying it, but every time we start, we stop, we da 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 da. And so honestly, just because you are biologically a man, I won't repeat. It was a little gruesome how I said it before. I won't repeat it the same way. But just because you're biologically a man does not mean you are called to be the leader right now. Maybe at
Right.
some point, but you got some work to do. Or should I say the head? Headship, there's safety and security in headship. There's consistency, stability in head.
Mm-hmm.
Most of y'all dudes that's on these internet, most of it is, and I'm gonna be real with you, most of the dudes that I know that I'm cool with, y'all are not those things. So y'all want these women to trust y'all, and y'all not safe, y'all not stable, y'all not secure, y'all not even in your right mind. So how are they gonna trust you? And they can just see it. Women are very perceptive. They can see that we off and when we off. And they're like, well, I got to be wise, especially if there's kids in the mix. I got to be wise. I can't let them
Right.
take the ship down. I can't let them sink the ship because we got kids. All for the sake of stroking his ego and making him feel like a man. So I'm gonna just let him keep leading, even though he's leading us to the bottom of
Into
the
the
ocean.
ditch. No, that's
So
a fact. I could, yeah, I can speak to that though. I can speak to this space where I wasn't secure or stable, and my wife had to stand in the stead until I got my mind right. So yeah, I definitely could. I definitely could go into what that looks like and kind of go into like the nooks and crannies of it. Um, but I'll save that for another one because I really feel like this topic is going to be something that we continuously speak on. But being at an hour and understanding the attention span of people and listening and things like that,
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to I want to throw some quick hitters at you real quick. And certain podcasts I listen to, they call it the hot seat, and some of them they call it the fast money round. There's just so many different things, and we don't have a name for it just yet because I literally have just come up with this just now. So I'm gonna ask you three questions, Spitfire, and they can be real quick. They don't have to be drawn out. Just real quick answers to what it looks like, and then you can turn around and give me three questions or whatever you want to do. It's just real quick hitters, right? So the first one is, what's your favorite color?
red.
Oh, I like that. Red was my favorite color at one time too. All right, so why is red your favorite color?
It it stands out. One part I'll start here. It's my dad's favorite. One of my dad's favorite colors. So I kind of adopted it from that because my dad, as much as I say like the real deal about who my dad was, and I get kind of behind the veil of who he was, my dad was my hero. So it is my hero in many ways because I know his story and I know what he's come through. So anything I say that's like the real deal, and all that, it's not really, like I said, being disparaging towards my dad. It's giving a full picture of who he is or who he was and things like that. So one, my dad, I adopted it from him. Two, I just like the way it popped. You know what I mean? It's just something about like a red sports car, and I don't even really want a sports car, but something about a red, the way it just looks, and the way when them things is rolling, that red flash, So you got that, and then I don't think I have another. You got the Phillies and stuff. A lot of the Sixers, the Phillies. Those are my two favorite teams of sports. Of all time. So you got that, and yeah. So that would be my reason. What about you? I'm gonna throw it right back at you. What's your favorite color?
Now, my favorite color is orange and gray. I grew up red and black, but orange and
Okay.
gray is my favorite colors. And the reason being,
Mhm.
well, okay, well, one of the reasons being, so I started the football team, the
Yeah.
Scorpions, or whatever. And as I was kind of like building out what it looks like, I had a notebook full of like notes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I realized that orange, number one, is a color of power, but then gray is a color of calmness. So that's why I kind of put the two together to form the colors of the team. And then white is an abstract color. However, white gives you like that outlining to bring the colors to life a little bit more. So, like for example, your red Phillies jersey, it's red. The words are red, but it has a white outline to allow the red to stand out more on the shirt. So that's kind of why my colors are my colors. And literally, I have stayed with the idea of orange and gray being my favorite colors probably for the last since I started the team, which was 2015. We're on year number 9, I think, at this moment. October would be year 9 of its existence. What's up, nephew? Is that nephew? That's my nephew.
Yeah,
What up,
yeah.
Bo?
Boy he ain't decently clothed.
Oh no, yeah, we can't have ball hair with no shirts on. We can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had to push him back quick. He came up here with his Superman outfit on.
He said, "Yo, I need all right now. I'm about to show my muscles, Dad." But yeah, that's my favorite colors.
Uh,
And then lastly, so the last question I have,
mhm.
in this one, no, we're gonna save that question for some another time. That one is a little in depth of
Okay.
a conversation, so I'm gonna save it. But my next question, and this is the last question because I said 3 questions, and we're gonna get up out of here. My next question is, if you could be anything, right, in this world outside of what you're already doing, what would it be?
Is this like career oriented?
It could be anything. It could be your career. It could be, outside. I mean, we'll niche it down to a career. Outside of what you're already doing, what would it be?
That's a good question. Um, I would probably be uh, if I could do anything outside of I'll say a coach, a college coach,
Okay.
college basketball coach.
Okay. I like
Yeah.
that.
I would definitely do that. I think I have the demeanor. I have the fortitude. I have the experience playing the game. I was trained very well by my father. He put me in good positions to be around other good basketball minds. So I have the mind. It's like riding a bike for me.
Hmm.
Can I spit out, a playbook right now? Like no, but if I got back into it, I was working with RB. By the way, shout out to RB. Got the position back. They was tripping too. Remember we talked
What?
about how we was hopeful
That
for the district. Yo, what was
bro,
what? Yo, we
I,
gonna talk about that, yo. We gonna talk about that because y'all tripping, thinking y'all gonna do that to an alumni, a man who
right,
invested his time in the community, still lives in the community. Y'all thought y'all was really gonna get away with that, but y'all did the right thing. Y'all corrected it real quick. Don't let it happen again. Don't let
bro.
it happen again.
That was a whole like. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, y'all bugging, but
Yo,
they bugging.
yo, and I'm telling you, it's bigger than basketball for RB. Always has been. RB, I look at him
Hmm.
as like that's me. I'm tight with Cy. Like we grew up together and all that, and KK, and we all know KK and all that. Like
Right.
RB, that's their uncle. Like, and RB was like our uncle. Like, period. He was around. He was always at every game. He was always in the mix for Township. I didn't play football down there, but all of them grew up like being
Hmm.
coached by RB, and then he coached ninth grade basketball. He was on the boys team, varsity team for a little bit, coaching on the staff. Then he got the girls program. That program, he has done so much with it, and I coached with him for like 3 years, I think 3 or 4
Right.
years. And when I tell you, every single girl that came through that program was better by being coached by him, just in life. We're not even talking about basketball, just in life.
When you had man, again, this is another conversation that we could go
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
hours in. But I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this for this subject. When you have a being in place who is not just about the X's and O's, but it's about life,
yeah,
sometimes that intimidates those who are new into a situation.
Yeah.
Um, and then never mind. I'm not going down that part of the path.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that part of the path offline,
Yeah.
because that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. Um, nope, I'm going to say it. We're gonna have to get an insurance bucket just in case people start coming back. You know what I mean, we got some insurance. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
on the block, but there ain't nothing here yet. You might want to wait
Yeah, I
a
mean,
few years.
yeah. Just wait it out. But
Might want to wait a few years if you think you're coming for us legally, because I ain't got nothing to give you. I'm
sometimes, see,
sorry.
that's why I ain't name dropping. But sometimes there's things internally that don't agree with what you're doing, so they try to um, extract you from the very thing that you're the goat in, right? The
Yeah.
greatest of all time in. Um, and there's a word that people call them. It's called haters.
Yeah.
Sometimes your haters
Yeah.
infiltrate from the inside, and you often don't even realize that it wasn't the new person in charge or the new administration that was in charge. It actually came from those who were closest to you. But I
Oh, so
digress.
you got some insider information I ain't got.
No,
So
I have zero. I have zero insight. But
oh, okay.
from what I've seen, and then the way that it was presented, um, it threw me off because you know me, I'm a man. I'm going right to the source. So I go to sedelco.org. I go to employment, and I look, and it said like after he posted what he posted, the job, excuse
Already.
me, the job was still posted on the website. So I'm like, yo, that was internal. That wasn't external. That wasn't the new person in charge who said, yo, this is what it is. This is what it's got to be. No, no, no. That came from internally. That came before, because there's some other things that happened and populated that was told to me from a space of confidence. So I'm not going to go like into what that looks like,
Oh
but
yeah,
there
yeah,
are
yeah, for sure.
other things that happen to other organizations within the school that it had to happen. But that was an internal thing before my main man got into his seat. That was
Yeah.
something that came down the pike way before he got into his seat.
Right,
So
right,
when
right.
I say it was internal, because yes, he is internal now, but that was something that was in the making way before he
Yeah,
decided to
yeah,
take
yeah,
what that seat looks like. So
yeah.
what I would say is those who are smiling in your face, those who are calling you bro, those who are calling you sis, those who are familiar don't always got your best interests at heart. And we had that conversation on this podcast already.
Mm-hmm.
You have you have to be careful with who you come in covenant with.
Yeah. No, that's
You
real.
gotta be. You
That's
gotta
real.
be. Um,
That's real. That's real.
so
I think
so I'm
you navigated that pretty well without. Yeah, I think you did a good job. That's a good job. That's a
I,
good job.
I appreciate that, bro.
People don't know how to act, right? So everybody doesn't handle confrontation the same way, right? Because that can be a very confronting
Mm-hmm.
thing that you said. If you were naming names, that
Right.
could be a very confrontational way of handling it, and people don't handle that well. Everybody, doesn't understand the art of war and everything like that. So they don't realize, like, hey, I might not be your enemy, even though I'm exposing something that has to do with maybe something you were a part of. I
Right.
may not be your enemy. I'm just telling the truth. And so if the truth is your enemy, then what does that make you? But that's a whole nother conversation. So we can go ahead and stop there. If the truth is your
Yo,
enemy, what does that make
I'm
you?
putting the money button on here, bro. The money sound button. Every time you drop one, I'm just gonna go like this. 'Cause, bro, that
Bro, I
was
don't know
money.
where these drones be coming from. I'm not even taking credit. They just be coming in and out of my head. I'm like,
There
my
there
hand
is
is
a
like minority
being
report.
there's a being that dwells inside of you called the Holy Spirit. That's where that comes from.
That's probably what it is. So,
So you
and that's
can't say
real,
you don't
bro.
know where it come from.
And like I always like to say, here's my disclaimer. My disclaimer is anything that I say like that is something that God is dealing with in me too.
Right. Absolutely.
So if I say something like if the truth is your enemy, then what does that make you? That's the same for me. And so it could be, and I'm not a person who lies or anything like that. As far as that goes, that's not a part of who I am. But it's a truth thing. It's like if I'm ever going to look at the truth as being my enemy, then what does that make me? I'm dishonest. I'm a liar. But if I'm like, you know what, even if the truth isn't favorable, like there's some truths that maybe won't be favorable about me as I
Absolutely.
continue to live life. But the key thing about it is one, this is why we got to break away from cancel culture. And this is the last thing I'll say. The thing about it is who you were is not who you are, and it's likely not who you're going to be. And so in many cases where people are trying to go back 10, 15, 20, 30 years and make you relive and rehash that whatever it is you might have said or did at that time. Now, of course, if there's legal implications, yes, you should pay your dues if you've gotten away with it this whole time. But what I'm saying is, from a standpoint, a social standpoint, there's stuff that people say. Like, I remember Kevin Hart was under fire for stuff he said about LGBTQ. And this was years ago, before
Right.
it was an issue to say these things. Now we're bringing it and fast forwarding it to now, and then trying, we need to cancel Kevin Hart. Not weird, but
Right.
society,
Right. Right.
the culture, is saying we need to cancel Kevin Hart because he said this derogatory stuff about the LGBTQ community, and we need to cancel him now. So for me, that's not the way. Like one of my professors said, we need to get in the habit of calling people in as opposed to calling them out.
Right.
Calling in is an opportunity to learn. So whether you agree with the LGBTQ or not, there are things that you should not say, derogatory things you should not say towards anybody, whether they are a part of that community or not. And so there were things we said in high school, there was things we said in middle school that would be totally cancelable right now. Like you just
Absolutely.
be egregious. Like, ooh, you said that, you're done. And I can admit that. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm more mature now. I'm more savvy in how I operate. I'm more compassionate. I'm able to critically think and be like, well, I wouldn't appreciate somebody calling me the N word with the ER at the end, the hard R at the end. I
Yeah.
wouldn't
Send them
appreciate
straight to
that.
the ER.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't appreciate that. So they don't appreciate when you say, what people say. I don't know if it's true or not. What people say is a bundle of sticks. That word got outlawed. But we used to use that word. We used to use that word crazy. And so
Yeah.
now I would never use that word. One, I just don't talk like that. I was putting on a facade trying to talk like that anyway. But
Right.
that's even here or there. We can talk about that too, just like putting on
On
a
your
facade of being
microphone.
talking and being a way that
Oh man.
but we could talk about that. That could be like our, you know, behind the mask episode where we kind of go back in time and look at like, yo, when I was this age, I used to act like this, I used to do
Right.
this, say this, operate this way. We kind of talk about that and then talk about, but now,
This is where I'm at.
where it say? When I was a child.
I think as a child. You know what I'm saying?
So we can go ahead and close this episode out, man.
So,
It was great to get back into the recording mode with you. I think this is a good one to freestyle just to kind of get back in the flow. And to reestablish the commitment through the rest of the summer,
right.
whatever that looks like. I don't think we have to be rigid, but definitely reestablish a commitment to get some good episodes out for the rest of the summer. And because when school kick backs up with both of us, it's gonna get even more
Yeah.
tricky navigating all of that. So
Absolutely. Listen, I wanted to inspire this, and I think it would be super dope. So I think that we should do a live recording since we do, since we are using StreamYard, and it'll allow us to record to different platforms: Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube, all simultaneously.
mhm.
But I think it's time that we had a live recording of what this thing looks like, because then we're able to get people's comments. So like as we're freestyling or whatever our topic is for the day, people can drop their comments and
Mhm.
we could go right into the comments because they're all going to flutter into the StreamYard platform and we be able to answer it real time. So I think that would be super dope. I think we should do it right before school starts. Because again, there may be a lag when school starts because of our commitments outside of just recording podcast.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Let's work on that. Um let's push that and promote that and get people kind of engaged to us
Right,
doing that. And then that way we know we'll get a good little crowd on there. So
right, and then we'll both be in person. We'll be in person for that one.
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? We'll sit down together and commune and really go hand for the land. But yeah, man, that's all I got.
Me too, man. So
Hey,
Like, comment, share, subscribe, and please, please subscribe.
Don't forget to leave. Oh, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those good things, man. Leave us a review so that we are able to climb the charts. You know what I'm saying? And when we are very, 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 very consistent, you know what I'm saying, it won't even matter no more. But go ahead and share it with a family or a friend if this episode bless you, man. Have a great day. And